video and its development online and how it progressed through just the titles of the videos themselves or quotes about what the industry is saying about as it progresses. So go with me a little bit. So the first one will be me at the zoo, 10 million views. Then a quote. You got to see this. It's just like TV with sound and everything, but it's on our computer. I don't know what the hype is. It's some little kid named Justin Bieber who sings kind of good. I don't get it. Cat falls off dresser, crashes into wall. The evolution of dance. Has anyone seen that? Yes. Evolution of dance. Hey, the video can be as long as we want. We'll put our entire 5-minute corporate video up. It'll be great. Cat jumps into box. Oh, this is great. We can just run our TV spot online, too. Man lights himself on fire frying turkey. Hey, we can just make the video ourselves. It's so much cheaper than shooting TV. My son's got a camera. Cat chases beam of light into wall. Holy crap, people are actually really watching video online. Newscaster falls off platform. I wonder if we should make our own video different than TV spots. Cat chases bird into glass door. We can segment, so let's make a separate video for every single person out there. 2-year-old in China smokes cigarette. How are we going to keep up with all the video we need? Cat jumps back into the goddamn box. Maybe we should think about this whole video online thing differently. So you can see as the video titles kind of either repeated or changed, the mindset changed along with it, and now we have to consider the ways to develop video. And so I have an esteemed panelist here that's going to talk about just that. So far we've talked about the value of online video and talked about buying it, and now we're going to spend a few minutes talking about creating it. So panelists, please introduce.
That's close. My name is Brian Carley. I'm from New York, and I work for a agency called Rokkan. We're about 80 people, and I'm the executive creative director there. And I don't know, should I say anything else important? I can say whatever I want. My favorite YouTube video? Whew, that's a tough one.
And then you were influenced starting with comic books.
Oh yeah, I was influenced by comic books. I started drawing when I was a young kid. Oh, you read my bio. So let's see. My favorite YouTube video might be Charlie Bit My Finger, and then yeah, I've been working in advertising for I don't know, about 13, 14 years, and right now I'm at this place called Rokkan. We just got bought by Publicis. We're a small shop. We're the digital AOR for Chipotle and for Stoli and for JetBlue, and we also do everything, all the marketing and advertising for a lot of video game companies, and we have tons of different other clients doing different fun things, a lot of social and stuff like that, and I'm here to talk about videos.
Awesome, and you will.
And I will.
Hi, I'm Judith Hammerman. I'm Senior Partner Director at AOL Originals. To give you a little background on Originals, it's a fairly new effort at AOL. You may or may not know that AOL at this moment is a #2 video network, and actually #1 in premium content. And so when we've been talking about premium content over the last day or so, I encourage you, if you haven't been looking at what's on AOL and their network at this point, definitely look at it. Originals is really there as an effort within the company to start creating premium content right within our own wheelhouse. We have 2 studios in New York and LA, but we also have a tremendous amount of partnerships across the country in terms of other folks that we're working with. There's a lot that I can't share right now because our new Friends is coming up at the end of the month. But it is an exciting effort and something that AOL is very much engaged with and excited about.
I feel like I should be on The Voice or something with this microphone. Yeah, we'll bust out the karaoke. My name's Mina Seetharaman, and I have probably the longest title of anybody up here. I am the Executive Director of the Content Marketing and Advanced Video Practices at OgilvyOne, New York. There will be a quiz later. So we basically take a programmatic view of content, right? So my team actually doesn't make advertising for the most part. Blad's talk earlier is a lot more like the kind of stuff we do. We focus on driving brand engagement specifically, but by looking at customer insights and consumer insights. So trying to make content that's actually relevant and useful to them. If you think of content as being broken into like story, utility, and offer, we focus a lot on the story and utility pieces. My favorite branded YouTube video right now is for the Fiat 500L, the mommy hood. And because you gotta like any video that manages to fit episiotomy stitches into a wrap. And my favorite unbranded video is actually Henri the cat par deux, because you also have to like a cat that can speak French. I know, I have no idea. Like, if you want to go viral, get a cat licking a Skittle. It just works every time, I don't know. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Irina, Skaya. I work at Sparks and Honey. It's an Omnicom shop. It's an agency where we synchronize brands with culture by bringing a data-driven newsroom model to advertising, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it, but we do that through a combination of data-driven streams as well as proprietary algorithms and human insights, and we identify emerging trends early on, and then we predict them based on the size and the potential before they explode. And my favorite branded video is Red Bull's The Free Jump, because I feel like Red Bull is at a point where they're not only writing culture, but they're actually creating culture. And one of the macro trends, we call them content networks, that we follow is first-hand look. And I love the perspective that Red Bull has given to their viewers, where they can experience something that no one else really can, and they did it live, and they really focused on the consumer rather than on the Red Bull brand itself. And I think as we talk more throughout this panel, we'll see that we're shifting away from the traditional campaign model and more towards consumer-oriented content.
I like what you were saying. So the attention is focused on the consumer and the interaction versus the brand. The interaction with the brand and the attribution to the brand isn't the goal, it's just an output of good content. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did everybody do their favorite YouTube video?
Oh, I guess I didn't.
I'll get you later.
You can get me later. That's fine.
Okay. So as soon as you say video, I think people assume a lower production quality, clients do, and much lower production cost. Now, when Vlad was talking, he kept saying, we spent a couple hundred testing, and then we did a whole other video campaign and all of that. And being from an agency, all I kept thinking was, who's holding the purse on that, right? So there's the movie studio side of it, and then there's the advertiser side of it. So I think I would love to see the face on Verizon if we went and said, well, we're going to spend this couple hundred on this, and then we're going to do this, and then if that doesn't work, we're just going to spend some more money over here. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later. First question, talking about production costs. I'd love, Brian, you had some good thoughts when we were conversing earlier about production quality, and not just the production quality itself of the content, but the difference in the quality of the communication. Yeah.
I think when we were talking, I brought up the example of what Old Spice did when they did the campaign with Mustafa, where he would respond to tweets through video, and those guys basically set up a camera on a set with a shower, and they had this guy make like 300 videos in a day, right? And I don't know what that cost them to do. I imagine it wasn't that cheap, but the ultimate output of that many videos was probably against what they were spending, probably made a lot of sense at the time. I think, but I do think a lot of times when you go to clients and you say, we'll do some videos for you, they're like, oh, cool, that'll be like $10,000. And you're like, no, it'll be like about $150,000 because we still have to pay talent, and we have to find a set, and we have to do a location. So I think a lot of times there's that stigma that goes along with, we're not shooting a TV commercial, we're shooting video, that they assume that it's going to be lower cost because the quality's lower. I think what we've seen now is because of the advent of like the digital SLR shooting video quality that looks just as good as film. We can create high quality content for cheaper, but not like massively cheaper. So, yeah, exactly. Fast, cheap, and good. Pick two. But But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a sort of this weird stigma attached to that idea of what video is and what it means. So.
Does anybody have a point of view?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, I kind of imagine you have. The challenge that I come up against sometimes and that I think we need to remind brands of is that there is actually a really broad spectrum of production quality and cost associated with it. My clients have a tendency to think there's either like $1 million spot or crappy UGC content and that there's nothing in between, and God forbid I should ever associate my brand with crappy UGC content. And there actually might be a time when UGC content might be totally perfect for a brand, and I'm sure you would talk to that. But there is a full range of stuff. You know, like at Ogilvy, we don't just produce 30-second spots that run for the Super Bowl. You know, I produce 2-minute series of 2-minute videos about like Tyvek house wrap that cost $50,000 to make for the entire series and actually drive leads. So I think that clients need to understand that there is that range. Like, I'd never run those Tyvek things as Tyvek spots,
Right.
but for what I'm trying to do with them and who I'm targeting and the result I'm trying to elicit, it's the perfect spend because the spend corresponds to the ROI. And so I do think that we have to get them out of this idea that it's either digital or online video, so it's cheap. It should actually kind of correspond to what you think the value is that you're going to get out of it. And if it's not worth it, then don't spend it. But you've to really kind of go back to defining what that value would be.
I think you said a nice important sentence when. Oh, right. I think you said a nice important sentence where the spend drives the ROI or is related to it, and I think those kind of conversations help them.
I also think there's, depending on where those videos go, there's acceptable levels of what that quality would be. So to your point, you would never run those ads on TV. And with things like Vine, we're seeing brands that are starting to use that more and more. And that is a specific quality. Like it's shot on my phone and it's X number of seconds long. So it doesn't have to be awesome, but if the content, it doesn't have to be awesome quality, obviously, but if the content is good, then you're in good shape, and I think that's okay. It's just getting them to understand that sometimes.
Talk to me a little bit too. I think clients have a problem sometimes with brand standards, and the my brand can't do that production quality wise. So can any of you talk a little bit about the sacrificing of brand standards in terms of video production? Because I get that a lot.
I am sorry. You should just tell me to stop talking when you feel like it. I don't think of it as the sacrificing of brand standards. I think of it as the broadening of brand standards based on a particular type of use. So I feel like I sound like a dude too. What's up with my voice?
No. I'm getting all chick over here.
Okay, cool. I was working with a large hotel company, and of course they love the idea of UGC because if you look at the statistics, and I'm big at looking at data, people use search, like 92% of people when they're planning a vacation start at search, right? So it's kind of important to be able to get to those people, and what they mostly look at is reviews. Like if you look at that landscape, it's huge. So they don't actually want super commercial content in the upfront, and so in that case, it really is like, is there a way by using a partner like Expo TV or Pop Tent or Zupa or something to like drive these kinds of content that people are interested in at the quality level that they're willing to accept, and still sort of feel like it represents my brand in a good way. And so it might be about like structuring it a little bit so that you ensure that the wrong logo's not used or that like certain words aren't used. But I don't think that it's so much about everything has to be like this pixel perfect kind of representation, because people just aren't expecting that anymore.
Right?
Yeah.
You go? Okay.
Go ahead.
You hesitate.
I was just going to say that, yeah, I think when you have smart people that work at brands, they understand the value of that. So, example, before I was at Rokkan, I worked at Saatchi & Saatchi, and we did a program for Trident where we had Steve Aoki and Duran Duran remix Hungry Like the Wolf as an exclusive track. And then we gave the song over to the community and let them create their own video. And the client was so excited because what we got back was like 80 unique pieces of content that really didn't look anything like the brand, but at the same time, because of where it came out of and where the idea came from, it felt like it was naturally a natural fit for it. So even though one video was like a guy on a psychedelic acid trip and another one was pure animation, it all felt like it came from the same place, and they got really excited about it and they saw the value in that.
And I think you bring up a good point in that way is that, when you're looking at budgets overall, there's a lot of giving and taking, right? And sometimes we pay a lot in one specific area, i.e. talent, but then locations in the back room, right? There's lots of ways around making that budget work.
So Vlad touched on this a little bit too about creating different videos for different audiences. So let's talk a minute about narrowcasting and how narrow do you get before there's a diminished return on your efforts and the quality given budget. Some of us do have budget constraints. So let's talk a little bit about that. So
I'll jump in here. What we look at with originals is when you look at the AOL universe and you look at 200 million people consuming some form of AOL property, we look a lot at celebrity, and we look at celebrity as an influencer within a specific target, right? So if there may be, Heidi Klum may be a very, very well-known celebrity across women on a whole, but we may have sort of smaller, not smaller, but perhaps more narrow-casted celebrities for moms who are raising kids who are, who have children 8 and under. And so we really look to that in terms of, I don't think we're going to go to the Chinese kid smoking a cigarette, right? But at the same time, we do want to take advantage. The advantage of the web is that we are dealing with, we have the ability to target.
Yes.
And if we do have the ability to target, then we should be taking advantage of speaking more directly to audiences. So I think what Vlad was doing with, with Silver Lining Playbook was brilliant.
And squarely part of the unique skill being able to do for video. Absolutely.
Yes.
I think, too, that you have to, you made actually the right point, which was like a point of diminishing returns, right? Mm-hmm. So the example I always use, and this is, back in the days when I actually worked on a DM campaign, a client came to me and told me they had 17 distinct audiences for this direct mail campaign. I went, okay, you're a cable company, so I don't know how that's possible, but okay. And I did some analysis. I looked at who they felt they were targeting, and then I mapped messages to those audiences. And what it really came down to is they were splicing the audience incorrectly. They really had 4 distinct messages to deliver, and so they could actually split that group into 4 different groups instead of 17. It would be more cost effective. It would dilute the messaging less because they were trying to tweak the messaging for each single audience. And so I went back to them and I said, look, I can charge you for a DM campaign that targets 17 different audiences, and you're not going to see any value in that. I would much rather, rethink this a little bit and streamline it. Because to me, the value was, yes, targeting is important, but when you get down to that level of granularity where you're basically not going to get any value out of it because you're either going to not drive the type of volume that you need or the type of value you need out of that interaction, I don't see the benefit. At Ogilvy we talk a lot about one-to-one interactions, and I always extend that by one-to-one interactions that make sense. At the end of the day,
1-to-1 for 20 people.
Yeah, actually, because if those 20 people are the people who sign checks for IBM, then that's really worth it to them, right? But it's probably not worth it to target a single dude who sits at his desk someday because he happens to use his DVR. That's not so valuable, right?
No, and I think it's good that the maturation of the concept of one-to-one is coming back to one-to-one for however many number of people it appeals to.
Right.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to also say I think it's also a really interesting time too. Where we're seeing that because of the way technology is growing, you can actually create a customized piece of content so you can create one thing that has it based on who's viewing it. The message is slightly altered. I don't know if anyone was at South by Southwest this year, but Google sponsored this film called Art and Copy and Code, and a friend of mine actually directed the trailer. And when you go to the site and you watch the trailer is different based on where you're viewing it from. So it's a movie trailer, but it starts with the city you live in. Except if I'm viewing it from Texas, the first piece of video I see is a shot of Texas. And if it's sunny out, it's Texas when it's sunny. Or if it's raining out, it's Texas when it's raining. Or if it's nighttime out, it's Texas at night. Or if I'm in New York, it's New York. And so the trailer is customized to where you are and what you're doing. So little things even if I want to watch a piece of content, but I first connect it to my Facebook, then we can start to tailor that content to the person, in a much more simpler and more streamlined way, which is pretty cool these days.
Well, so speaking of content creation too, agencies create content, some of the media partners create content. So let's talk a little bit about the friendly elbow fight between media content creators and the agencies themselves creating it, because we see new titles, new companies sprouting up because of this need for content. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Here I go again.
You're next. Just because.
So I'm a lover, not a hater. I actually don't. So my team does focus across the gamut of like paid, owned, and earned, right? Because I just think you can't realistically think about content if you don't think about all of those things. It's ridiculous to think that I only have to think about like TV and banner ads, or that I only have to think about my website. Because everything kind of connects to each other, and what you're trying to do is create a content ecosystem that feeds itself, right? So I partner with like the Neo folks all the time, or if, for example, like on one of my clients, Havas is the media agency, and it's been really great because they will open up their media plan to me early and say, like, what do you think about it? And I'll say, I think this stuff's great. Like, have you thought about this? I have a contact here. I could talk to them about it. So I try and make it really collaborative, because at the end of the day, everybody brings a different kind of expertise to it. And frankly, I don't want to be in the business of striking like every single deal with Forbes and Inked and Wired for like, you know, a special branded place for one of my clients. Someone else is much better at that negotiation than I am. What I can help them do is figure out how those pieces fit together, and if they're if the Washington Post is going to be shooting some video for us, like what are the types of questions that I would ask to get the answers that we want, so that when we get the raw footage, I can edit something else out of it and use it in more places. That's what I think like my role is, and I think that everybody else has a role too, and we just have to be really. We have to kind of stick to what we're good at and help it to sort of feed the whole, if that makes sense.
I think you're totally right. We have a lot of instances with Verizon where we're partnering with someone, AOL being one, and they will shoot the creative for us, and it's just a development thing. So you have to kind of expand your base of knowledge and what you're comfortable doing and let go a little bit of that, so you'll get a better product at the end of it.
And then you have to put that overlay of how are we, what is the ROI on this, right? Because if we look at media and we say, all right, we're just going to, look at this and put it through a media lens, we've kind of only done it half service, right? So we need to put additional lenses on it as a way of valuing it.
At Sparks and Honey, we're in a unique position because a lot of the agencies that we work with, media agencies and PR agencies, and even creative agencies, they're not equipped to create real-time content yet. So that's where we come in. The way we actually plan content is we have like a 70-30 rule, so 70% of the content we pre-plan, and 30% we create in real time new content, because we can't predict everything, and so there are instances where things just happen in point in time, and so we need to be able to think quickly, and sometimes we create content literally within like 2 hours, and it's very stressful. But our cultural insights that we bring to feed our content actually also helps the media agencies, and we're able to use paid media and work with PR to amplify our content. So actually works really well in our case, because we don't need to spend those additional dollars to promote the video. We're just focusing on creating great content.
And I know that makes clients nervous when you start talking to them about, I can't see the storyboard ahead of time, and there's a little bit of planning into it, but it's not kind of this guy, I don't cast for this, and that nervousness. Can you talk a little bit about how you get clients over that reticence?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, we do a lot of work up front with the client. So when we're creating content, we do a series of different pattern analysis, and it's really important that the content we do end up creating isn't just culturally relevant, but it's brand relevant. I feel like that's where a lot of brands actually miss the boat. We've seen it, during the Oscars. A lot of brands tried to replicate Oreo's success during the Super Bowl. We actually had a client who wanted to participate in the Oscars and, ride the cultural wave. And we're like, no, this is not really relevant for your brand. But I did watch closely to see what other folks were doing. And I think people were more concerned about the timing rather than creating great content, actually having relevant context and being authentic. There was a lot of push marketing rather than, engaging with consumers in a conversation that was about the event that they were watching. And so I think once we show our work up front and once we create the pre-planned content, all we do, the 30%, is we sometimes tweak the headline or make small changes depending on what's trending in pop culture. So I think, when we talk to them in those terms, they actually become more comfortable with that.
Okay. Yep.
But, to touch also on that elbow fighting that you were, referencing earlier, I fall into the same camp of, I'm a lover, not a hater, so to speak. And I do.
Haters on the panel?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm not really.
But you'll take the other side just to shake it up.
Place your bets now.
Right. But, I think that there's becoming actually less and less of that tension as we become more and more reliant on each other, right? Because we all bring certain things to the table that ultimately serve the client. Something that AOL launched over the last year for General Mills is a destination and a content program called Live Better America, and it's a General Mills program, and it includes content. It includes their content. It includes evergreen content of ours. It includes new and fresh content that we've co-created, and ultimately, when it all comes together, it's content that's really, it is the best creation that could not have existed if only one party had brought it together.
You needed the minds of all.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think as a creative, it's difficult. It's hard to let go of that creative control. I think you all have a vision for, especially when it's within a campaign, you have a vision for what that is. And when you work with partners, sometimes it's hard to relay that, or sometimes it's just completely out of your hands. The media company is doing a partnership with this site, and they're going to create content for the brand, and they're going to put it out there, and then you see it, and you're like, holy crap, what is this? Why would they ever do this? This is awful. How come we didn't get to see this first? But I do think it's a good opportunity when it's done well. So it's more like a case-by-case basis. I've seen when I was at Saatchi, we worked on Miller Lite, and I saw some really bad co-created content for that. That's a hard brand to create good content for. Right now, we're working on some stuff for Stoli right now, where we're launching a platform. It's more of like a magazine. It's their lifestyle platform, and that we're working with some partners who I'm really excited about the content that they're going to create for. We're working with Vivo and Vice, and so that it just feels more open and more collaborative. We know what the idea is, and everybody's working on it together to create great stuff. But it's hard to let go of that control.
I hear you. My therapist and I talk about it all the time. Did I say that? So in talking about video, most of us are thinking about the video that we've seen online that just plays and then we're done, pre-roll and things like that. But we've been experimenting lately and with great success with some interactive video. And you mentioned Vine earlier, which is the social, and that Twitter's version of social aggregated video. And we've been working with Telemetry, which is a company out of London who does interactive video where you can stop and shop within and create actually kind of microsite experiences within video. And then there's Viclone and lots of others. Let's talk about the evolution of video and where we see things might be going. Mina.
Yeah, I know. I'll just start it off. So yes, there is a lot of really interesting stuff out there in terms of interactive video, and I think from my perspective, because I always think about it from an engagement perspective, what's nice is that it sort of helps me to create a richer experience without making the consumer or the user go to multiple places. So if I can somehow create a kind of interactive video experience where someone does all of the engaging in the video and can still watch the whole video, that's kind of a compelling idea, right? Because it feels really seamless and kind of aggregated and simple for a user. I think what's also interesting about them is we do a lot of work on YouTube, but somewhere around 60 up to 60% of people don't actually make it to the end of an online video, right? So it's really affected our storytelling arc. Like, we take a very different approach to storytelling on the web than we do in a 30-second spot. So you might have that sort of 3-act play thing that happens, or the brand is hero thing that happens on TV. We avoid that like the plague online, and it frustrates us when someone comes to us with what is basically a TV ad and says, make it go viral. Because that's going to happen.
Does it have a cat in it?
Yeah, no. And if it did, then I would say, oh, maybe. But usually it doesn't. And we take more of the inverted journalism triangle approach, right? So if it bleeds, it leads. Like, what is the most important thing that if you stopped watching in 5 seconds, I still got my message across, and you're cool. And I think that the idea of some of these tools that allow me to have a little more flexibility in the storytelling arc, because I'm not having to interrupt that video experience, is kind of a great thing. And it's not right for every project. I do think there's still a place for sort of that lean back experience, and I think there's a place for what I call the tablet experience, which is the lean back with slight engagement experience. I haven't come up with a pithy name for it yet. As opposed to just the lean forward experience. But if you're in that lean forward state, that's a really kind of nice tool to have at your disposal or within your arsenal.
Agree.
Sure. I think, a lot of social media users, this is no news, they're very narcissistic. So the more we can involve them in our content, the better. So I've seen a variety of different brands actually do unique things. So, for example, I think it was the USA Network. This was, a couple of years ago. I've seen them using Twitter, leveraging Twitter to allow people to finish the endings of different clips. So things of that nature that basically pull the consumer in and help them, finish the story and involve them in the storytelling experience, I think is where we're going to go. I mean, we've seen some examples, but not enough. And I feel like that's basically the future, and that's what the consumers are expecting of us and of our brands.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit, too, about the relationship of video and TV? I think we generally view them as at odds, and I'm starting to see them used in conjunction. And you kind of nodded to that a little bit when you mentioned different endings. So sometimes a spot will play on TV and then drive you to kind of a longer video experience. So let's talk a little bit about that. Mina cannot start.
I'll say something. I think that crossover is getting really interesting. We're starting to see it in things like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a fan of HBO Go, the app. I watch a lot of my content on that. So, but we're starting to see that crossover into, I can watch a show. Your point about viewing on your tablet, I can watch a show and then I can watch the interview with the director about that episode, or who was it? Coke did on this. Was it Coke that did it on the Super Bowl with the race to the giant Coke bottle, and then you could go online and see the different endings and all that kind of stuff. So, I think there's a lot going on with that, where you use TV as kind of the teaser in, and then we create these other assets that become the long form version of the story. I did some of that. We actually shot a short film with this director, Martin Campbell. He directed Casino Royale, and it was to make a 30-second TV spot, but we ended up making a 5-minute film. So our TV spot went from being like an ad to all of a sudden they're like, maybe we should treat this more like a movie trailer. And then, the idea sort of changed as the spot evolved. We're seeing that. I think that crossover is becoming interesting. We're seeing people are more interested in especially I think on TV, if you have that opportunity to grab their attention in a TV commercial, make it something really exciting, and then drive them to maybe long-form content. Well, they'll spend a little more time watching it.
Right. Anybody else?
I think you're starting. I kind of look at it in a bunch of different categories, right? Like, one of the things that people are at odds about is this sort of second screen phenomenon, and if it really exists in the way that we as digital people always think it exists. you know, I think more research really needs to be done to let us know, like, are people actually looking at stuff on their tablet that's related to what they're watching on TV, or are they checking email and Facebook, right? And because I know I actually do that a lot. Like I, you know, like confession, I watch The Voice like every single week. I don't tweet about it, but I am online usually when I'm watching it, but I'm doing other stuff. But that said, I do think we're kind of in this interesting space now where there is, like, a second screen doesn't mean Shazam, you know what I mean? Yes. Or a hashtag. It can, like, there's so many interesting partners out there, like Vigil, like Shazam, like all these, you know, there's just more variety out there. And so I think what we are starting to see, which is kind of interesting to me, is second screen within the screen. So people watch a lot of TV or just programming in general on their tablets, right? So kind of creating this aggregated experience within that tablet experience. So I'm watching, but then while I'm watching, I can actually do stuff on my tablet, and that like actually pull up interviews or behind the scenes or whatever. And I think that experience is really compelling to me, just from a programming standpoint, because it doesn't require necessarily two devices, and it's something that you can kind of take everywhere.
Yeah, I have a friend who works on Walking Dead, and so while we're all watching she does special effects. So while we're watching Walking Dead, we'll be talking to her about, you know, how'd you do the blood scene, or is that a real spleen, or whatever.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Actually, it's a pig spleen.
You know, I think we're seeing a lot of opportunity because we are working with so many more celebrities now. We're seeing a lot of opportunity for cross-promotion, right? So I use the Heidi Klum example again, but it's a good one for this particular point. You know, Heidi's she's all over TV at this point, right? She just she was just moved to America's Got Talent, so she's something, you know, where she went from Project Runway to she's really hot, right? Yeah, so can we use those promotional TV opportunities to drive what's going on with our effort with Heidi Klum Online? And so we're looking for a lot in cross in that way.
So instead of the cannibalization of TV to video, it's starting to be synergistic.
Right. Or we just finished up a big video program with Nina Garcia. You know, less of a celebrity than Heidi, but still a celebrity. We did a lot with Mary Claire, right? Because that's Nina's home. So how can we use those other mediums to help one another?
To me, that's the whole point of the content ecosystem, right? Yes. Like, so you really need to understand, like, what does your landscape look like? What role does each piece in the landscape play? And then, you know, we identify, like, what are the drivers, what are the destinations, and what are kind of the ongoing messaging or engagement opportunities for us, so that, like, if a celebrity is appearing on TV, how can I leverage them from either, like, a driver or an ongoing conversation standpoint? Like, it really is sort of this... if not self-referential, at least self-kind of supporting system.
Right. Coming into the full time-wise, are we good?
Go to Q&A in about 5.
Okay. Speaking of kind of what's coming in the future, is there anything you're seeing in video now, any kind of trend that you think will be waning?
Cats.
Cats and kids smoking cigarettes.
Kids smoking cigarettes.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about the changing of agencies, so how the structure of an agency is starting to change because of content development and the relationships with some of the suppliers. So talk to me a little bit about how the agency model is shifting.
I've noticed, yeah, no, I mean, I've noticed it at the big places and the small places. I mean, being at a smaller place now, I see that we have a lot of people that wear a lot of different hats, I think. So the UX, as an example, one of the UX people on my team is also like our cinematographer, and we have to shoot stuff, you know. So I think it's staffing up in a way where you have the right people doing the right things when you need to turn things around quickly. And I've also seen it's really hard at some of the larger agencies. So they bring in a lot of those people, and they don't last very long because they don't actually get to do the things that they want to be doing. And it's harder sometimes just to move things along with all the politics that are involved in it. But I do think you're starting to see stuff like almost putting attack forces on brands. So you'll have, like, you know, I think about when you have the Oscars or the Super Bowl. It's like, all right, this is our social media team. We need like 2 creatives. We need a copywriter. We need an art director. We need 3 people who are going to send tweets. We need somebody who's looking at what's happening at that. You know, you spend like 24 hours just like cranking through and trying to come up with cool ideas, and that's fun. And I think we're starting to see that those emerge as like these little pockets of new models that are happening within agencies, which is pretty cool.
I actually think of it as an evolution that I like seeing, because to me it's actually more creative than just having 2 people come out of a room with the idea. You have kind of everyone on the team contributing, and I think that's actually more exciting.
Yeah. I think, and I also think there of that mindset, like good ideas can come from anywhere. So a lot of times, like that thing we talked about before, creatives try to keep hold over, like, no, we come up with the ideas, but I think when you open it up and you let everybody get involved, sometimes somebody will have an insight into something that would spark a really great idea, which is cool.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the insights coming from?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I can't really say how we're changing because we're just a startup. We're so new, and we were born into the way Sparks and Honey is structured. But I'll tell you that, you know, we work with a lot of creative agencies, and they expect us to put together a creative brief. Which is not something that we can do when we need to turn around content within 2 hours. So it's a bit of a struggle in terms of working with different creatives and getting them up to speed. And we're also a very collaborative environment where ideas are really coming from anywhere. So usually what we do is we invite creatives to sit in with our cultural strategy team. So every day, if we're working on activating content against a specific brand, we actually have culture briefings every morning, and there we discuss what's trending right now in culture, and then boom, we'll tell you the energy, the prediction scores, what you need to know, how it's relevant to the brand. We have a criteria sheet, but then the creatives, depending on the lifespan, how long we actually think that the story will last, people are gonna continue talking about it. That's the amount of time that the creatives actually have to put something together, and sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's a day. It just really depends, but I just know that it's very, very hard for someone coming into Sparks and Honey, to work with us, because it's very, very different.
Sure.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
Questions?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think it's a much more fluid model than it used to be, and people need to get comfortable with that. Not only at big, I mean, I've been at Ogilvy for 8 years, and I came from like an 80-person shop, and I can only tell you like what the changes are that I've seen. And I think we, as larger agencies, need to kind of get more open to just learning how other people work and what works and what doesn't. I think we need to get more comfortable at not reinforcing our clients' behaviors. Like brands have, like the reason they ask for a creative brief, because the client wants a creative brief, you know what I mean? And it's sort of like, why can't we just have an overarching brief for a program and everybody just knows they're aiming for that target, you know what I mean? And there's not like all this extra paperwork involved.
Hallelujah, sister.
Or like, like you can't respond to the Oscars if it's like, well, it's a week for legal review. Right. Yeah, okay, good luck with that. Like, we'll put it up on the Facebook page next week. Like, you can't. So I think that helping clients to make that shift too. So like maybe it's not just the art director and the creative director who have to, and the copywriter who have to sit in a room together, but it's a lawyer too. You know what I mean?
It's
and
funny.
The client.
Yeah, and the
client.
Totally.
You're funny about the lawyer is up in New Jersey we have the lawyer, somebody from Facebook, me. So that it's happened. And what's funny, and this is just a small anecdote, but the lawyer honestly did sit in the back of the room with their arms crossed going. Because there's the comfort level there is so much different than having 3 weeks to review everything. And eventually we got over it, but it's just a new way to think. It's an evolution.
I mean, I had a lawyer from Bristol Myers Squibb once get on the phone with me and say, when are we launching this? I said, I'm supposed to go live at 5 and it's 4:30, but I can't until this thing's approved. He's like, all right, pull it out. We're going to go through it word by word and we will get you up tonight. Like, so if you find the right guy,
I need the number of that lawyer.
Make friends with lawyers. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think legal, that's one of the biggest areas that we've seen a shift. I mean, we pull in legal right there, right up front, right from the very beginning. They are on every conversation, because when we're all trying to get deals done quickly. Often, once it goes, if you wait and you hand it to legal later, you've got weeks of time, and deals are held up, and none of us have that.
And then you
So-
lose that window of
Yeah.
opportunity of what's trending.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting how it's affecting everything.
Let's get him one question.
Sure.
Thank you. I know we're very short of time. So one thing that you had said earlier, about the idea that what we're doing here is creating culture, that really resonated with my thinking as well. But I think it's a lot easier to do that when you're a brand that's alcohol related, or if you're a brand that is really high consideration. For a lot of the brands that I work with, they have to be very low consideration products. We don't have a right to win, so to speak, in playing in that cultural space. So wondering if the panelists had any thoughts on how is your thinking different if you're really thinking about a low consideration brand such as a paper towel or facial tissue or a toothpaste or something?
No, I can talk about that actually. I'm not a panelist, but I'm going to play one. We actually have Brawny as one of our clients. And one of the, sorry, a competitor is one of our clients. And we just got done doing a whole video execution for them against moms with babies and a whole strength thing, and they were very happy to do it. And it's one of those things where I think it just depends on what you create. I think every brand can have some sort of relevant socialization or build some sort of social following. And I don't even know if that needs to be a goal, but I think every brand has a right to win. I think that was the term you used. Because it's going to appeal to someone, because that's the point of its existence. So can you explain a little bit more about... No, oh, sorry.
But we have a roundtable on this very
Yes,
topic
we do.
at the end of the morning where I think we can engage them. I'm sorry, I let it go long.
It's fun.
But Tina and panel, thank you very much. But